This conference will now be recorded.
Being part of this process, helping all of our Ohio libraries along with Northstar Digital Literacy. And with that, the floor is all yours, Teresa.
All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Today, we're going to talk about how to talk to your learners that you encounter in the libraries about Northstar, or your clients, your patrons, however you like to refer to them. I am Teresa Slodek. I'm with Literacy Minnesota, and we are going to look at how to kind of guide the learners through the assessments and talk about it with them. We're going to review proctoring. Now, some of you may not be proctors, but it's helpful for you to know what's involved in proctoring. So if your library does decide to do it, you can explain it to people and to the clients at your libraries about why they might want to do it. How to talk about the student dashboard and the self-directed online learning. And then at the end, we're going to go through some of the curriculum where I'm going to be the instructor and you are all going to be the learners. And so you'll get to see, what it's like from the learner perspective to kind of decide if this is something your library might in the future want to provide. So first, let's talk about assessments. So as a matter of fact, I was talking to libraries in New Jersey this morning, and someone asked me, what if someone comes to my reference desk and they say, I'm interested in digital literacy. How do I explain to them that they should take an assessment first? Because they might be like, no way, I'm not taking an assessment. And that is such a great question. And it is really true that many people have test anxiety and they don't want to take an assessment. So when we encounter, when we talk to people about the assessments, it's really important to let them know that this is not something where they're going to be judged or that's going to be a mark against them, that, and really put it into positive, put a positive spin on it, right? That the reason that they are taking the assessment is to help determine what they already know and where they have room for learning more. So that helps them save time so that they're not going through material that they already know. They can really focus on the digital skills that they don't have yet. Also, I like to tell them that it helps them view their progress. So if they take a pre-assessment, we talked about in the trainings past that you want to kind of provide the assessment first as a pre-assessment, and then whatever instruction you're going to provide, and then have them do it as the same assessment as a post-assessment to see where they've gained in skills. So talking to them about that to say, we want you to be able to see how much you learned after taking either doing this online module or taking this class, can also help people understand the reason for taking an assessment. Obviously, if they are going to have a proctored assessment, then they take it so they can get the certificate. And that can be used on a resume or an interview or just to have the certificate. Another reason that you might talk to people in kind of a different context about taking an assessment, if they're doing some computer-based testing, so like more higher stakes, like a GED test or something, Northstar is just a good way to practice taking a computer-based test. So if you have someone coming in who's talking about, I'm worried about taking this online test, that's more higher stakes, you can direct them to Northstar as just a way to practice taking online assessments where there's not a fee or it's not timed, to kind of help them relax. Test anxiety, though, is a very real thing, and maybe some of you experience it too. And what happens? So I have a biology degree and then a master's in counseling psychology. And when we are anxious, our bodies are flooded with neurochemicals that prevent us from being able to access information. So, our body is charged to, in an anxiety situation, to kind of that fight or flight mentality. And so it's really blocking the brain's ability to transfer stored information into the present. And so any way we can reduce test anxiety is going to be helpful for people. And so if you're working with a client who's seems very anxious, they want to take the test, but they're very anxious. One thing, a study that I helped with here in the Twin Cities, with a classroom where we spent some time, people took a test, we saw their scores, then we spent some time with half the group teaching them about how to reduce their anxiety in the moment, and gave them some skill, some ways to do that. And then they took the same test, and the group that had that kind of anti-anxiety training or anxiety reduction training did better, even though they had not spent any time learning the material again. They just did better because they were able to pull up more information than they had previously. So what can you tell people kind of in the moment? If you're working with someone, especially if you're a tutor or a volunteer who's working with someone and you are working one-on-one with them, you can tell them just to take some deep breaths, because that is going to calm down your physical system, and to start giving yourself positive self-talk. So a lot of times what makes us anxious is we're saying things like, I can't do this, I don't know any of this, I'm going to fail. And if you can retrain yourself to say things like, I'm going to do my best, I'm just going to put down what I know, this will help me learn what I need to know. So even if you can be saying those things to people, providing them with some of that positive talk, may help them kind of calm down. So sometimes, though, you're gonna work with people who the Northstar assessment isn't the right thing for them. Maybe their English language level is very low, or maybe their digital literacy level is low, where they're not even sure how to use a mouse, or for whatever reason there's no computer available at the moment, or they don't have a lot of time and they just want to quickly see where they might take an assessment on their own or something. So we do have these screeners in Northstar that you can use to determine that. And you can find them in your admin portal under the resources. So they're under resources, and then under other resources. I probably should show you that. Let's see. This will take me there. No, it won't. So when you sign into your admin portal, you remember our blue navigation bar that we have talked about before, and we have to get to that spot. So when you go and log into your admin portal, here's your navigation bar, and then you can see here's resources here on the right. And then in other resources, those scanners are at the bottom, the screeners are at the bottom. So this one is kind of a paper and pencil screener, where you're asking people to see if they know the terminology at all. Now, if you're working with someone in another language and you happen to speak another language yourself, hopefully it's the same language, you can pretty easily translate this. Again, this is just getting at, do people know, does this person know anything kind of basic about computers? You can also provide this screener, which is more having people show you that they know how to do something. So you're having them do some tasks just to quickly see what they know. And then that might give you an indication of, should they be taking the basic assessment, or are they good to, work on Excel if that's what they want to do. So, and then this again, if you have someone who speaks multiple languages, can be pretty easily translated. So those are some of the alternatives to the Northstar assessments. I want to show you what the assessments look like. And so let me just, before I get there. So when someone's going to take an assessment, if you remember, you're going to give them that your site-specific URL, and you can find that here under either under your organization's name, and here's that in the second bookmark, here it is, or under assessments. And that URL is going to take them to make sure that the information is captured at your library. And so when you either bookmark that on your computer or you give that to them, they're going to see something that looks like this. They won't have the warning, and then there'll be all the assessments. I'm actually going to pull up something else for you that I think will be interesting. So,
Teresa, we had a question in chat. Is this the link we should use for our website?
No, that's my demo link, so don't use that.
And again, where can they find their link again?
Okay, so their link you can find under, you can either find it under the assessments. Yeah, the link in your admin page, that is, Lauren, the one that you want to use. Exactly. So not the one I'm showing, but the one that you would find in your admin portal. So again, you can find one under the assessments tab, or you can find it under the assessments tab. Here, the assessment launch page, here's the link. And then, or if you prefer, under your library name, where it says, mine says demo, but yours would have your library name, and then the second bookmark, that's the same link. So once you provide that to to them, again, you want to bookmark it on your computers in the library. If you're doing this remotely, like you can set it in chat. And so that's where they can take the assessment. And so once they get to that page, what you want to do, there are some instructions there that the learner can follow. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. So let's say they're going to take an internet basics test. I can kind of magnify it a little, but it's and what you're going to hear first is some cello music, and that's to test the audio, because as you know, Northstar uses a lot of audio in its assessments. And then I'll kind of turn that off quickly, and then we're going to go into an orientation, and then I'll stop. So this is just what someone would experience. So this is determining if you can hear audio. Then someone would press the next.
Let's take a minute.
And then there would be this orientation video. Now, I just want to remind you, I guess, that a lot of the products that you provide to people at your library, it's something that you put on your website and people can kind of do it themselves. Northstar is a little different because the population you're serving, many of them don't know how to access your website, right? And they don't have the digital literacy skills. They might be very, very beginners. So they are going to need more, some people will need more hand-holding from you. And that may seem daunting, but also remember, like, if we really want to close the digital divide, these are the people that we need to help. And so it's really an equity issue to be able to help people who can't do this on their own. So for those people who can, easily understand the orientation video, They can get on it themselves. That's great. If you're working with someone who you feel has, low digital literacy skills, or maybe not used to the computer, they're going to be walk-ins, obviously. They're not going to find this online. And you are going to probably want to sit down with them and just explain a little bit about how to navigate in the system. So the orientation will tell them, but it's going to be more beneficial if you kind of sit there after, you can do it after they do the orientation or before, and just explain what the buttons are. So on my screen, you can put this, I think, yeah, I can see the chat. In the chat, what navigation buttons do you see that you that you might want to tell someone about so that they can take these assessments? So you're seeing my screen. I can try and make it a little bigger. What are some of the buttons? All right, so someone said play, right? So I want to tell them, this triangle lets you play the video on this orientation. And sound, here's the sound, and you can either mute it or you can make it louder or softer. Great. And then closed caption, this is a good one too. The closed captioning, allows people, if they want to see the words on the screen, they can. Share, you probably wouldn't be sharing the assessment too much. Full screen, how to make it, expand it here so that they, if they want more real estate. Those are good. How about in the Northstar? Let me skip the orientation, and we're going to just look at one of the.
Select all of the internet browser icons, then click Next.
So how about on here, the icons that you see in the Northstar system? What are some things you might want to tell them about? And remember, when you're talking to people with low digital literacy, if you say closed caption, people may not know what that means. So you really want to describe what the button looks like, right? So replay sound is one that you want to tell them, but you might want to say, the button that has the arrow pointing left with the speaker will let you replay the audio. And describe, what does the volume button look like? Does anyone know what this is? The three-lined, 3 dots, 3 lines? It's the menu, that's right. So this lets people, if they choose to answer I don't know on this question, they go to the next question.
Select 3 ways you can connect to the internet.
You can click here and it will let you go back to that question that you missed. So you can complete, let's say you skip a couple of them. Before you finish the assessment, you can always go back and look at them or review your answers by going to that menu and then going back.
Select all of the internet browser icons, then click Next.
All right. So again, those are kind of some of the navigation things. That orientation does show that, but for people, again, who are, pretty new to digital literacy, it's good to sometimes just walk them through this. So, all right. So once they've taken the assessment, well, another way they can take the assessment is from their dashboard, and we'll talk more about that later. But it would come, if they're at their dashboard, it would still come to that same page and they'd still see the same exact things. So once they've taken the assessment, they will get to this results page. They'll get a results page. And does anyone remember what percentage you have to that for Northstar to say you passed an assessment? 85%, very good. All right. You guys are adept scholars in Northstar. So you have to have 85% or higher to pass. Now, sometimes people will say, well, on one assessment, I got, 29 out of 34 and passed, and on another one, I got 30 out of 34 and didn't pass. And, there's something wrong. Northstar didn't calculate it right. And so the thing that, if that comes up, the thing you can explain to them is that the questions are all weighted differently. So some might have multiple answers, some might have multiple steps that you have to do. And so you can't necessarily say, because of that weighting, you can't compare assessments, numbers. So 29 out of 34 versus 30 out of 34 may not be the same. So just to let people know that. Over here on the left-hand side in the green column, these are the standards that people have passed. And then in the gray column on the right-hand side, these are the standards that people did not pass. Now, someone may say, you can see that this person didn't pass standard 5. Someone may say, but I know I answered question 5 right. And it's important for you all to know that the questions and the standards are not a one-to-one correlation. So standard 5 may be in question 5, but it might not. It might be somewhere else. It might be in several questions. It probably is. And question 5 might have several standards attached to it. So just to explain that, in case people are wondering about that. So once they come here, though, they do have the option of clicking on the practice barbell to the right that will let them go right to the self-directed online learning. And so let's take a look at how that would actually look in real life. So we're going to go to kind of a live, here's a live results page, and you can see, I can scroll down and see all the standards that were missed and that were passed. And if I want to practice it right then, if the person has time to practice it right then, they can do that. And that's assuming that you have added them to the learner management system, which we talked about in the last training. So just remember that if you want someone to be able to access the self-directed online learning, they need to be added into the learner management system. So if I clicked on the barbell here, it's going to take me into this question. So this first question, they won't see. That pertains more to me. But the second question, they most likely will, unless you've turned this off at your library. And the question is, right now, are you physically at the testing location? The reason to ask that is that lets you in reporting see if people are using this at your library or in a class that you're offering, versus them doing it from home or from work or from a coffee shop or something. And that might be interesting information for you. So usually when I'm working with someone who, again, may not have extensive digital literacy experience, I would walk them through this and just explain what that means, and then have them click on save. And then
the internet is great. Much like everything else, it has problems you need to.
They're going to get to right into the self-directed online learning, to that piece that they had missed on the test. So that is great if, again, if this is something that they feel comfortable doing, but you might also just spend a few minutes with them, again, reminding them of the navigation, which is pretty much the same as in the assessments. So you can replay the audio, you have the menu where you can move around in the practice and the self-directed online learning to different pieces, and then you have your next button. The other thing that you want to tell them about in the self-directed online learning is that there's going to be several different types of screens. So here we have a screen where there's some audio and some words, and it's an instructional piece. If someone wants to turn closed captioning on, they still have the CC button here. We also have on the next screen, I think, videos. And so that's another component of the self-directed online learning. You'll have instructional piece where you read and listen, and you'll also have instructional videos. If for some reason they haven't already turned on the closed captioning at the very beginning, you know, if they're starting in the middle or if they haven't turned it on the very beginning, when you get a video, you do need to instruct them to turn it on in the actual video, not down at the bottom of your screen, but in the video. And that's where you'll get the ability to use the closed captioning. The third type of screen, I guess they might see in Northstar Self-Directed Online Learning, is asking them to do something. And so I think if I go back here, just want to show you an example of that practice here. So you'll see that there are some slides that have this barbell where it says try it. And this is something where, again, we want, you know, it's hard in digital literacy to learn it just through lecture. So you want people to actually be doing some of the, practicing some of the skills. And these try it's are those places. So you want to just kind of let people know when they see that barbell, there are some instructions about what they should do next. So those are kind of the main components of the self-directed online learning. You know, as you can see, it may not take, there are some people who are going to be able to do this without your help. There's some people who might just need a little quick tutorial from you about how to use this. So, you know, good to know that. So again, the lessons, they have something to read, watch, or do. We've talked about all these different buttons and the fact that you really want to, when you're telling someone about the buttons, make sure you describe them rather than assume they know what the replay button looks like. Describe it to them, for example. All right. So once someone completes if you remember, the way the self-directed online learning is set up is there are several sections, usually 3 to 4 sections in a topic. And once a learner has gone through the instructional and practice material in a session, they'll get these review questions. And the review questions, when they are green, it means, you know, that lesson is complete. And once you've completed all the lessons, it unlocks the review questions. So you can see that unlock symbol at the bottom of my screen. And once someone takes that little quiz or those review questions, they are, if they get the question right, they get a green check mark. If they get it wrong, they get a kind of red-orange exclamation point. If they should get it wrong, they are told to go back and review the section. So you know, here what they would go back and look in that menu for are what kinds of computers are there. And then the other one would be what is on them. So that way they can review that part and then they take the quiz again. Now, sometimes people will take the quiz again and still not get the questions right. So they may come to you asking for help. Northstar at that point will give them some suggestions a little bit, but it doesn't tell them the answer. So here's where you might be asked to kind of instruct them or talk to them about it. Now, you might not know the answer either. You can always also check the curriculum to talk about the topic, but for those, most of the time you will know the answer. And for those that people have a hard time with, even instructors, we have, you know, after someone tries 2 times and gets it wrong, we have put the answer in there. So for those really difficult ones, or those ones that aren't obvious, we have supplied the answers. Sometimes though, you might need to kind of describe something to someone. But remember, with the assessments, you can help people navigate through the assessment, but you can't help them answer any question, right? So the assessments, people may ask you, well, I don't know how to answer this, or can you help me with this answer? And the answer you give always has to be, let's just see what you know. I can't help you out in this way. In the self-directed online learning that we're looking at right now, you can help them out. This is practice. So if they're not understanding something, if they're not understanding the question, you can do things like, well, have you thought about this, or kind of guide them, and that's perfectly fine. Excuse me. Any questions about kind of how you talk to people about the self-directed online learning? As a reminder, it is about each module is about 90 minutes from start to end, but people can do it in whatever increments of time they have. So if they only have 10 minutes, they can do 10 minutes, and then their progress will be saved for the next time they come in. So the way that, let's say they have taken an assessment and they don't have time to work on the self-directed online learning, or they worked on it and then they have to leave and they want to work at it from home. They can always log into their dashboard. And again, that would be, they'd have access to a dashboard because you or they had signed themselves up on the, for the Northstar Learner Management, signed themselves up into the Northstar Learner Management. And the way then they sign in to the dashboard is to go to our homepage. And if you remember, that's, excuse me, www.digitalliteracyassessment.org. And again, I would, it'd be, you can use your site-specific URL for them to log into. It doesn't really matter where they log in. But up here, I'm gonna change this so I'm not logged in so you can see the whole process. Up here in the upper right, you'll see the login, and they would just click on that. They would enter their email and the password that you had created for them, or they had created, and then they would log in. If they've forgotten their password, they can go to reset my password. So once they log in, what they will see, not necessarily what I'll see because I'm also an administrator, but what they will see is their dashboard. So when they log in, they will get right to this page and then into the dashboard. So this is what they'll see when they log in. So again, you might want to, oh, good question. Amanda asked, do they have the option of creating really simple passwords? Yes, it's not like your normal, you have to have a capital letter and a symbol and 5 numbers or whatever it is. It can be like the password could be dog. So it can be very simple. And that's a really great point for some people, maybe even who don't know how to type very well, making it as easy as possible, or something they can remember. Thank you for that question. And I do want to mention, just on that, please feel free to chat in any questions that you have. Definitely, this is for you, so I want to answer any things that, or talk about any things that you're interested in. So here's our dashboard, and again, I might spend 10 minutes just going over with them the first time they use it, how to use it, and what they're seeing. So what they see on their dashboard is they will see they'll have access, unless you decide as a library to change this, they'll have access to all of the assessments that Northstar has. The way it's set up right now is that the system requires you to first take an assessment before you do the self-directed online learning. Now, sometimes maybe you're in a situation where people don't want to take the assessment and you can't convince them. They can still do the self-directed online learning, and they would bypass it. This is kind of a trick, but they would bypass it by clicking on the name of the unit. So if I click here on Windows, it will gonna get me in the back door into being able to take the self-directed online learning. But otherwise, they can start by taking the assessment, and that again looks just like what we saw before. And once they complete the assessment, then you can see these circles show up and this details button shows up. Now, some of them, like Mac OS, if you can read it, it says, lessons are not yet developed, lessons coming soon. So even after someone takes an assessment, there are no self-directed online learning lessons for this yet. And people sometimes get confused, like, did I do something wrong? Didn't I, why didn't I get the practice lessons? So whenever these bold words are here, it means that we just don't have something completed yet. As a reminder, we have the self-directed online learning lessons for 6 of the topics. So basic computer skills, internet basics, email, Windows, Word, and career search are the 6 that we have. So how to describe this to your learners? So what they're seeing is in the outer ring, this shows them how much of the assessment they got correct. So if you remember our results page, it was 85.8%. Well, this outer ring is showing that graphically. Here on email, this is a 97.4% shown graphically. The inner ring is showing them how much of the self-directed online learning practice they've done. So that can be a way for them to kind of gauge how much they've completed and how much they have left. If you're working with them in a kind of a tutoring capacity, or if you're teaching a class, you can even use that to give homework to say, I'd like you to complete 50% of the self-directed online learning by the next time we meet. When they pass an assessment, the symbol in the middle shows up. So you can see here on basic computer skills, there is not one, and on internet and email, there is. If it's in color, that means that, well, I could say it always be in color. That would show that, they passed this assessment, but that it was in a proctored environment. You can see that if I hover over it, and that may be, I think that's true. If it's in color, it means it's proctored. If it was in black and white, it would mean they passed it, but it wasn't proctored. So the other symbols you can see on this page are these kind of little circles. And those are those sections I was telling you about. So you can see, in internet, there's 3, email, there's 4. Usually that's the case, 3 or 4. And if you hover over this little circle, it will tell you what that section is called. So this is for staying safe online. Here's connecting to the internet, and this is using the internet. So these symbols, you can see they're different. If you see a locked symbol, that means the person has yet to go through all the instruction and practice, the lessons in that section. So they have not yet reached the quiz. Once they do all that practice for the section, then they unlock the quiz. So that's the unlock. And once they take the quiz and pass all the questions, they would get a check mark here. The one thing to note is, and that kind of confused me a little bit at first, is that the placement of these circles is not related to the lavender circle. So the lavender circle is just, at this point it would stop at 25%. At the bottom it's 50, 75. It's just showing percentage. And these are not tied to where they are in the unit, I'll say. So just in case someone's confused by, seeing, well, I completed all this, why is this locked? It's because they're measuring two separate things, kind of. So if someone then wants to practice the assessment, wants to practice the self-directed online learning, I did say that you can click on the name to get there, but they can also click on the details button. And that's going to take them into kind of the second page of their dashboard where there's these 3 tabs, and you can see it starts out on the practice tab. If they want to start the self-directed online learning from the very beginning, they can come here to start practice, and that will start from the very beginning. If, however, they want to just work on specific things, they can come to this practice tab, and here in the bold capitalized letters, these are those sections again that we saw before. So the connecting to the internet, using the internet, and staying safe online. Those are the sections, and each of those sections has the little quiz. Within those sections, any of the wording you can click on. So if someone wants to refresh their memory on what is the internet, or connecting to the internet, or wants to get into these kind of more into the standards really, they can click on any of these, and it will take them again to that piece in the self-directed online learning. So it could be that they are going to be filling out a job application, and they want to learn how to fill out an online form. They could come here and click on this, fill out an online form, and it would take them right to that, part of that section of self-directed online learning. And you can also use this if you're, teaching a class. You might want them to all review, identify, and work with tabs and windows before you teach them whatever you're going to teach them. So maybe you spend 10 minutes in the class with everyone doing this on their own. Excuse me. The other tab, standards, this will show someone which of the standards they missed on that assessment, on this assessment they did the best on. And over here on the right, we'll let them practice that particular standard. We'll take them to that piece in the self-directed online learning. They can always go back and practice, something they've already passed as well. And the assessment history tab shows them when they took this, so we're in Internet Basics, when they took the assessment, what their score was, if it was proctored or not. And if they click here on the date, we'll again take them back to that results page. So they always have access to the results page if they want to take a look at it again. So those are the kind of the components of the dashboard that you want to explain to somebody. And if you're starting out with someone who, is a little bit lower in their digital literacy skills, you can, you don't have to tell them everything, right? So depending on how you feel this person is going to absorb the information, you could just start by saying, click on the details button and start the practice, if that's kind of where they're at, or go to the standards tab and practice the ones that you've missed over here. So don't feel that you have to give everyone all the information all the time. It really depends, again, on their ability. Lauren had a great question. Once it's marked practice complete, can they enter and practice that section again? Yep, you definitely can. You can click on it and it will take you.
The internet is great. Much like everything else, it has problems.
So you can do that. And the last thing I want to mention is that if you are, I get back to the right screen. I have so many open. If you are on the second page of that dashboard and you want to get back, if you want someone wants to get back to the first page, and I'm just trying to kind of find if I have a good example for you, and maybe I don't. You can always click on the Northstar symbol though, and that will take you, I think this might take you to the Northstar homepage. But if you're on the second page of the dashboard, if you click on the Northstar symbol, it will take you to that front page with the circles. So that's how people can get back. All right, so any questions about how you might talk about the dashboard with the people you're working with? These slides are just explaining what I said to you. All right. Now, all of you who have access to the admin portal also have access to the self-directed online learning. And this is great because then you can, I would highly encourage you to go in there and play around in it and become familiar with it, so it's easier for you to talk to your learners with. And there's the added benefit that you might learn something. So, you know, if you've taken the assessment and you've seen your score and the areas that you need to work on, you know, use this tool to help yourself learn new skills. So there is an easy way for you to get between your admin portal and seeing Northstar from the staff perspective in the admin portal and seeing it as a learner. And so the way to do that is here where it shows your name. Here I am in the admin portal, right? I'm viewing it as a staff person. If I click on that down arrow and go to the Northstar Online Learning, then I'll be seeing it, I'll be seeing the dashboard as if I'm a learner. And so that lets me, you know, come in here and play around and practice in here. So I'm used to it, so I can talk to it with your clients, and also so I can learn things. So, and then to get back to your admin portal, you would again click on the drop-down arrow by your name, go to admin portal, and you'll be back where you started. Okay. So again, Northstar Online Learning is 90 minutes to complete a module. It is, like everything else, aligned with those Northstar standards, which, you know, if you remember, the standards basically say these are the skills that you need to learn to be competent in this topic. Progress is saved, and then you can review as many times as you'd like. Any questions about that? All right. I want to then remind you or talk to you a little bit about proctoring. So let's say, you know, someone comes in, we talked about them doing the assessment unproctored to see just what they know, and then either doing the self-directed online learning or taking a class, and we'll look at that in a minute. But then they might want to, once they take the assessment again, they might want to have it proctored. And so that might be something you consider offering at your library. And if you remember that proctoring is the only way that someone can earn a certificate if they pass the assessment. And sometimes people need to have those certificates for some training programs require Northstar, that certain Northstar assessments have been passed. Sometimes businesses are looking for those specific assessments that have been passed. So there may be people who come to you and say, hey, can you proctor this assessment for me? And at the library, you can, you know, decide how you do that. Maybe it's that you have a computer lab and it's open certain hours for proctoring. Maybe it's that people have to schedule an appointment to do proctoring. So there's a variety of ways to do it, I guess. But when we're thinking about proctoring, there's a couple of things. Let's talk about proctoring in person first. You can do proctoring remotely or in person. But when we're talking about proctoring in person, there's a couple of things that you would need. One of them is a very basic that you can probably guess. So if I'm going to do proctoring at my library, what is one item that I am going to need so people can take the assessments at my library? Pretty basic component. A computer, yes, thank you all who answered that. So we're going to have computers, obviously an internet connection. Well, maybe not obviously, but Northstar is online, so you would need an internet connection. And then Northstar has the option in the assessments for people to use audio. So you can imagine if you're in a library setting and that audio is playing, what would be helpful for you all to provide? Headphones, yes. Now not everyone will use the audio, but very distracting if people are using audio and they don't have headphones. So you want to provide those things. There's a couple, I told you about how people get to the assessment page. And so one of the things you want to provide is that to have that launch page bookmarked through that URL. And so that's just going to make it a lot easier if it's bookmarked on your computers. Then people can just go to that and enter your site-specific URL. The other thing that may not be as obvious is you would want a copy of the Northstar Testing Code of Conduct. And I'll show you where to find this. This is on your resources page. But these are basically saying, that something you read to the person taking the assessment that basically says, they're not going to you have help from somebody else or use notes or I think drink or eat in the computer lab, and kind of basic things. And you can either read it directly or you can paraphrase it, just as long as the gist of it is understood and they agree to it. So that testing code of conduct, you can find it a couple places in your resource, on the resource tab. So if you go into your admin portal and you go to the resources tab here on kind of the far right, you can find it in the Northstar manual. And it will be kind of toward the end. So here are part 9, the codes of conduct. Here's the test taker code of conduct. There's also one for proctors, so that when you go through, if you become a proctor, you go through this 20-minute video kind of training. And in that, you learn about the Proctor Code of Conduct, which is basically saying you're not going to help people take the assessments. But here's the test taker code of conduct. So you can see it's, fairly not asking a lot of people, I guess, here. So as you know, you can do proctoring remotely too. And so obviously you need those things. What else would you need to do remote proctoring? So if I'm doing remote proctoring, I need a way to see the people I'm working with. So what would I need? Zoom or some kind of, video conferencing platform. And a webcam. Very good, thank you. Also a way to talk with the people. So either they know how to use chat or they know how to, mute and unmute their microphones. You do want to make sure that their microphones are mutable. Again, for the same reason of the audio, you probably don't want the audio, being heard. If it's a situation where you have multiple people on the Zoom call taking the assessment at one time. So to get someone ready to do remote proctoring, you can give them that test taker checklist, which you just saw on the last screen. You also want to provide some kind of support for the video platform. So whether it's by phone, email, text, WhatsApp, however people might contact you in case they can't get on the Zoom. And then you want to make sure they're comfortable using that video platform before they start the assessment. So again, that they know how to raise their hand if they have a question, that they know how to mute their microphone. They know where the chat button is. Those kinds of things. And then you can send them the launch page in the chat. So that same URL that I showed you, where you can find under the assessments tab, you can just copy that and send that in the chat, and then that's the easiest way when they're remote proctoring. So if you remember from excuse me, from the last training, if you are in person with someone, and maybe there's 1 or 2 people. You can proctor using your Proctor Pin. And the way that looks, well, just let me remind you, the Proctor Pin can be found, everything about assessments, proctoring assessments pretty much, can be found on the Assessments tab. So you see this yellow rectangle, that's your Proctor Pin. Each of you who is a proctor would have your own unique Proctor Pin. Never want to share that, especially with someone taking the test. So this is something that you want to keep private. If for some reason, and maybe we talked about this before with this group, if for some reason you accidentally give out your Proctor Pin and other people are using it, you know, like test takers, you can reset your Proctor Pin so that it changes and that the one that you had before is invalid. But if you have your Proctor Pin, they've gone to your launch site, to the special URL, and they are, let's say they're not logged in. Actually, I'm gonna go here to a different browser because I think that will help you see it better. Okay, so they're gonna go to your site-specific URL, and you can see it will have the name of your organization. Mine says demo. I will have your address. It will say here proctor mode is off, and it will be kind of grayed. And then here, if they have a learner account, if you've signed them up for a learner, they can log in here. If they don't, they can still take the assessment and they can put in their first name and last name. It's better for the library if they have a learner account and they log in, because that way it ensures that it's tracked to their name. So it will be tracked to their name if they put it in, but let's say one time they take the assessment and they say their name is James Smith, and the next time they write in Jim Smith, the system won't know that those are the same people. So just for cleaner records, it's more helpful if they log in, and they'll put in their email address and their password, log in, and again, you know, take into account their ability to do this. And once they log in, you'll see that they're logged in and it'll have their name. So I now am working with someone who is in my library. I'm standing next to them at the computer, and I'm only working with one person. Any guesses as to how I can enter my my Proctor Pin? What do I click on to enter my Proctor Pin? So here I am. So validate computer via PIN is the actual answer. And I know some of you put join Proctor mode, which I do agree is confusing. So join Proctor mode is something that only the learner needs to click on. If you are entering your Proctor Pin, go with where it says PIN, that's kind of your key, and that's where you click. So you're gonna click here, you're gonna put in your Proctor Pin. I had copied mine. You're gonna do authorize. Oh, well, I did the wrong one somehow, which doesn't help us, does it? Oh, I know what I did. Let me get back to my Proctor Pin. Here. And then it's not as cool when it doesn't work, but here I put in my Proctor Pin, I authorize it, and then you can see Proctor mode is on. So that's what they'll see. They'll see that, you know, you type in something, they shouldn't be looking at it, and then they'll see Proctor mode is on and it's green. Just one reminder, once they're done taking the assessment, you want them, or either them or you, to end the Proctor mode, because you don't want to leave this open and you step away and someone else takes an assessment saying it's Proctor, but it really hasn't been. So just turn it off. You just would end Proctor mode. It asks if you really want to do that. You say yes, and then it's back to the gray. So from their standpoint, in that situation, they don't really have to do anything. They've clicked on the link to get here, and then you validate the Proctor Pin, and then you tell them to scroll down and take whatever assessment they're going to be taking as you are proctoring it. So before they start taking the assessment, you would check their ID to make sure that their ID matches who they say they are, and you'd read them that testing code of conduct, and then you'd get into, oriented them to the assessment if this is their first time taking it. Or if not, just let them take the assessment and you're watching them take the assessment. Now, if you have a large group of people, it's impractical for you to go around to every computer and enter your Proctor Pin. Or if you're doing it remotely, obviously you can't do that. So there is still a way for you to do this pretty easily. So again, you're gonna give the test taker the URL, your site-specific URL. They're going to be at this page. Their proctor mode is going to say they're off. And then if you remember from our last training, you're going to go into your admin portal under the assessment tab, and you're going to start the new proctor session. So you start it, then you tell them to, at this point, click on join proctor mode. So again, it's always them doing the join proctor mode. And if you're entering your PIN, it goes where it says the word PIN. So they're going to join the proctor mode. Then it says, hey, I'm trying to join and I'm waiting for you, Proctor, to basically let me in. And on your end, you've started this and you should see, let me get back to that. For some reason, it doesn't like me doing this today. So let me just log out and log in again. So you're going to start that proctor mode, view current proctor session, and then you can see what you will see. This should have just popped up. Is you'll see that, hey, I have someone who's waiting to take an assessment. And if I'm ready to start the proctoring, I click on start proctoring, and then on their end, they'll see that the proctor mode is on. So as long as they can tell you that it's green, proctor mode is on, then you're ready to, again, continuing the proctoring. So from the test taker, the assessment taker point of view, it's all fairly easy to do. To take the, to do the proctoring. So once you've done that, like I said, you would do all these things. You also want to remember to end your proctoring session if you're doing it in this way too. So you're going to view your session, and then when you're done with the individual, stop proctoring. And then when you're done proctoring everyone, you would click on the gold end proctoring button. And then it asks you if that's okay, and you say yes. So again, you're making sure that you're not logged in as a proctor when you're not actually able to proctor. Oops. So now we have gone through all this. And what I want to next talk to you about, but first ask if you have any questions kind of about the whole assessment process or the self-directed online learning process. So if you have those, I'm going to just pause for a minute. If you do, you can write them in the chat. But next, we're going to look at the instructor-led curriculum. So if you are thinking about offering classes at your library, this is what you would be using if you're going to use the Northstar curriculum. And I'm going to take you through this, and you are going to be the learners. So I'm going to have to ask you, I am going to ask you to participate. So when we get to that part, I will have you unmute at some parts to repeat back to me some things, and we'll kind of go through something practices together. But what we're going to look at as our example is the Internet Basics Lesson 7 on Internet Privacy. I'm not gonna teach obviously the whole 2-hour curriculum. I'm gonna just teach a portion of it for you just so you get an idea of what it's like to be a learner going through this curriculum. And then once you go through that, I'll show you what I as an instructor saw. But I am going to first show you some of the materials that you have access to. And we talked about this last time somewhat, but in your admin portal under resources, you can find the curriculum over here on the far right hand side in the middle, and view Northstar curriculum. And there is a teacher guide. So the Northstar curriculum is written in such a way that you don't have to have a teaching background to be able to use it. But you, if you want just kind of an understanding of the various components, so all the lesson plans look the same. They all have the same different parts to them. And if you want an idea of how to kind of use those different parts, so like the Pair Explorer, for example, the unit project, how to give suggestions, there's just some information in here to help you with that. You also have, if you're going to be doing remote teaching and you've never done that, here are some tips for doing that. And then the last bullet up there is kind of how to teach your first virtual class if you haven't done it, and how to talk to the learners about using the various functions within your virtual platform. Underneath this, these are all the lesson plans here. And they're arranged in the same categories as the assessments to make them easy to find. So if I'm going to teach Internet Basics, I'm going to go to Internet Basics. All the lessons have what's called the scope and sequence, and that shows you all of the standards. First, all the skills that people will learn, and then all the standards that are in this lesson. And what's nice about this is that, so let's say you just want to teach kind of a mini class on, let's do or fill out an online form. You can see that's standard 9. So then if I go over here to the lessons, I can see that standard 9 is in lesson 9 right here, fill out an online form. So then I could just go to lesson 9 and find the material that I'm wanting to teach. And this also lists all the kind of digital literacy vocabulary that people are going to learn in this whole unit. So now I said that, well, there's also here, this talks about how Northstar is aligned with some academic standards. That's the College and Career Readiness Standards. The ACES Transition Integration Framework Alignment, these are more soft skills. So if you're looking for something that's more aligned with kind of those soft skills that you might use in a job, this will tell you where in the lessons you can find that. But then here are the actual lessons themselves. And here's then at the end, there's also a unit project if you decide to do that. It's taking in kind of all the skills that have been learned in this unit, as well as some extra reading that people have to do, and then putting it all together into an actual project where they make something. If you're teaching this remotely, like I am, you can go to under Learning Resources, the Remote Learning Resources page, and this will show your students on the screen only the things that will be of interest to them. So you don't want to show them the whole lesson plan. That's just going to be confusing. But you want to be able to show them the handouts and the vocabulary and things like that. So those Remote Learning Resources pages, that is what that includes. So today, so Christy asked a good question. How long does it take to teach all the lessons for one topic? So the curriculum writers felt that each lesson, if you did the entire thing, would take about 2 hours. I've found in teaching, a little bit of teaching, it takes a little less time, maybe like an hour and a half. So it kind of depends on who you have in your, how many people in your class, who you have in your class. So, but if you did the whole thing, here there's 9 lessons, so that's about 16 to 18 hours if you did everything in there. Sometimes you don't, sometimes you have that amount of time, sometimes you don't. If you don't, well, one thing I would recommend in either case is to give all the people in your class that pre-assessment and see which of the standards they need to learn. It may be that everyone in the class already knows standards 1 through 7. And so then you can either lightly touch on them or just kind of move to standard 8. That will make it more applicable to the people in your class. And then you can always, there are optional pieces in here that if you are, kind of short on time, you can take out as well. But did the whole thing, in this case, it'd be about 18 hours. Thank you for that question. So we're going to do the internet privacy. And what I have done and what I would recommend for you is that if you are going to be teaching a class, obviously if you're teaching it in person, it's good to have the lesson plan printed out or on your laptop or whatever. If you're going to be teaching it remotely, again, like I have the lesson plan printed out and next to me on my desk. If I'm in a place where I have multiple screens, I might have it displayed on a second screen. But most importantly, what you want to show the learners remotely is just the material that's interesting to them. You don't want to show them all the instructor kind of background material. So I'm going to show you first what that teacher guide looks like, what the first page looks like, just so you see before we go into me teaching you. So here's the I split this up into the top part of it and the bottom part of it, just so it's easier for you to actually see it. So you can see here on the top, this is showing you the standards that are going to be in this lesson. Here are the digital literacy vocabulary words. Here are the technology concepts. Those are basically the objectives of this lesson, kind of written more in instructor language, and any teaching tips that you might not know, but that would be helpful for you to know in teaching this lesson. So, and then the bottom of that page really just shows what the handouts are. If you're in person, you make copies of them. And if you're doing it virtually, you can click on those links as well to get to the handouts to show on your screen. So we are going to start where I'm going to be the instructor. You are going to be the learners. I am going to pretend that you are intermediate English language learners. So you're at an intermediate level of speaking English. So that means that we're going to go a little slower through this. And my point is that you want to take into account your audience. If you have people who are native English speakers and they're pretty quick to learn, you can move through these quicker. If they're people who, for whatever reason, maybe English isn't their first language or one of the languages they speak, you might want to go a little slower. So I can't actually see all of you, but please unmute so that you can kind of follow along with me when I ask you to repeat after me. And then when I ask you questions, you can either shout them out into your microphone or you can chat, whatever you feel more comfortable with. So today, this is the vocabulary these are the words we're going to learn. And as I mentioned, we're just going to do part of this lesson. So the terms that we are going to learn today are on the third line here. And I want you to repeat after me. So the first word is secure. All right, let's hear you all say it. There's 56 of you, 53.
Secure.
Secure. Okay. And then the second phrase after the line is not secure.
Not secure.
Not secure.
Not secure.
Yeah, that's okay. If you don't have a mic, that's fine too. All right, so those are the two words that we're going to use, terms we're going to learn. So as we start to think about internet privacy, what kinds of financial or related to money and personal information do you have to keep safe? What things do you have to keep safe from people you don't really know outside your family?
Banking, credit cards,
Yeah,
birth date.
health information, bank account numbers, credit card numbers, sometimes birth date. I mean, you might share that with friends and things like that, but maybe online. Anything else you can think of?
You can give it to Molly first, then I'll take it.
Maybe social security number. You probably won't want to share that with many people. So those things like your credit card numbers, your social security numbers, how do you keep that personal information safe? What can you do to keep your personal information safe?
Need good passwords.
Encrypt
Have
it.
strong encrypted, strong passwords. Don't just give it
play
away.
the quizzes on Facebook.
Don't play the quizzes on Facebook that are maybe not secure.
They ask your pet names and all that stuff that you usually use for passwords.
Mm-hmm. Right. What if I write it down on a piece of paper? What if I write my social security number down on a piece of paper and then I want to get rid of it?
You want to get rid of the paper, you'd want to shred it.
Shred
You
it.
want to shred it, right? You don't want to just put it in the trash. And so so those are all great ideas for keeping your information safe. And today, what we're going to learn to do, and now backing up to talking to you as instructors, if I were to teach this, I would presume that a lot of people that I'm teaching don't have a printer at home. And so they probably can't print out the handouts. But I have found that adults really like to refer back to what they've learned. So I often recommend that they would have a notebook or some paper and a pencil or pen, and then they would write some things down. So in this demonstration, when I say to write things down, you don't all have to do that, but I'm just kind of demonstrating what an option is for people. So today in your notebook, I want you to write down what we will learn to. You can see we will learn to. And today what we are going to learn, what we're going to focus on is to recognize when websites are safe to share private information with. That's a long sentence, so I want to break that down and have you repeat after me. We will recognize.
We'll recognize.
Recognize.
When websites
When
websites
are safe
are safe
to share
to share
private
private
information with.
information with.
Great. So one thing about helping people who maybe don't read well in English, what studies have shown that learning any language actually, if you read it and stop at the places where you normally would pause, I obviously exaggerated it, but that's going to help people with reading comprehension as well as with pronunciation, because they're going to hear which words you emphasize and what words don't have a lot of strength to them, like, so information with, the key word is information, with is just kind of tag along. So that's just a kind of if you are working with people who are lower literacy, that's a really great way to help them practice their reading skills as well. All right, so when you use the internet, you sometimes need to enter that private, valuable information we were talking about, like your credit card number or your social security number. You should only do this if you are using a secure website. So how do we know if a website is secure? There are two ways to know if a website is secure. First, the web address will start with HTTPS. And it's important to notice if the website starts with HTTP instead of HTTPS. because a website that starts with HTTP is not secure. So let's take a look at that. You can see here, a secure website starts with HTTPS, and a website that is not secure starts with HTTP. Also, on a secure website, if you look at the address bar, which we learned about in our last lesson, you should see a lock, just like in this picture with the green circle around it. A lock means a site is secure, and if it doesn't have a lock, or more importantly, if it says it's not secure, then it's not secure. It's important for you to know that a website doesn't have to have both HTTPS and a lock, it just has to have one for you to know that it's secure. So I also want to tell you that a secure website is not always a good website. Just because it's a secure website doesn't mean the information is very valid or good. You can still get viruses. You all know about the coronavirus that's causing COVID. And just like viruses, that virus makes people sick. Computer viruses make computers not work right. So a secure website doesn't mean that it can't get a virus. A secure website only means that if you send them that personal information we were talking about, other people can't read it. So it's safe from other people's eyes. So now I want you to turn the page in your notebook, and at the top, and again, you don't all have to do this, but at the top, yeah, you can all go back to being muted, thanks. We can use the chat from now on. At the top, I want you to write Internet Basics, Lesson 7, Handout B. Now, depending on the level of writing ability of the people you're working with, you could just have them write 7B, whatever works for you. And then I want you to write the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down the page underneath each other. And again, if you're working with people who have been in the American or even Western educational system, they'll know how to do this. But many other cultures and people who are coming from other parts of the world haven't had that type of education. And so they'll just need you to explain exactly what you mean in numbering a page sometimes. All right, so once you have that done, let's take a look at this. Number 1 here. Is this, and I wonder is this website, number 1, secure or not secure? And you can chat your answer. Secure, people are saying secure. It is secure. How do you know that it's secure? It has HTTPS. Very good. All right. So then in your notebook, under number 1, I want you to write secure. All right, let's look at number 2. Is number 2 secure? It's not secure. Right. Very good. And how do you know that? HTTP, no S. Okay. No HTTPS. Very good. All right, how about number 3? Is that secure? People say no. And why not? No S, but it does have an S right here after book. There's an S. So again, as an instructor, I mean, I know that you knew that, but as an instructor, you want to make sure that people are not just guessing the answer, but they actually know why they are saying what they're saying. So that's why I kind of always check to make sure that people understand, that it's secure because it has that HTTPS, that the S actually has to be after the HTTP. So just again, kind of checking in, and this handout here is intended to be done with the whole class. So it's a way for you as an instructor to just get a feel to make sure that everyone is kind of on the same page. You probably won't have a class of 51 people. So in your class, you could always, call on someone if you're seeing that they're not answering to make sure they're understanding. All right, so we'll go through the rest kind of quickly. How about number 4? Is that secure or not secure? Secure. All right. How about number 5? People are saying secure. You guys are quick typers, quicker than me. How about number 6? Not secure, right? Because it only has the HTTP. So in your notebook, you should have written, these are the answers that you all gave me. And then at the bottom, I want you to write these words in red. HTTPS is secure. HTTP is not secure. All right. So now let's look, let's turn the page in your notebook, and we're gonna title this Internet Basics Lesson 7 Handout C. You know, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down the left-hand side of your paper. And let's look at these. So now I want you, you know, on your own to go to these websites and tell me if they're secure or not. So the first one is citypages.com. Is that secure or is that not secure? I'll give you some time to do that. All right, people are saying secure. And what did you see on there that made you say it's secure? Someone saw the lock. All right. Great. And someone saw the HTTPS. How about Costco.com? Is that secure or not secure? Secure. People are saying, yep, it's secure. It has the lock and HTTPS. Okay. How about StarTribune.com? I'm seeing people answering secure. Okay. For number 4, I want you to look at not Lily News, because that was just bought out, I think. Do you like my writing on here? MNABE, I gotta make sure it's .org. I think it is. Try mnabe.org. Not secure, right. No lock, no HTTPS. How about cost.com? People are saying cost.com not secure. I think that one just changed actually. It used to be owned by another company and then they bought it out. And how about yahoo.com? Yahoo is secure. All right, so then in your notebook, some of these answers have to change because the cost.com just changed. But you should have, oops, I'm gonna erase my, you should have secure, 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 not secure. We said this 5th one was not secure, and then secure. So very good. So now turn the page in your notebook, and I want you to write on top, Internet Basics Lesson 7 Handout D. And then number 1, secure, and number 2, not secure. And we're gonna do some vocabulary work. So, does secure mean 1, a window that does not track your history, 2, a website that starts with HTTP, 3, all of the websites you visited, or 4, a website that starts with HTTPS? Which one means secure? A website that starts with HTTPS, right? Number 4. Very good. All right. So you can write that down in your notebook. And then which one of these means not secure? Number 2, right? A website that starts with HTTP. Very good. So let's let's kind of recap. How do you know if a website is secure or not secure? How do you know if a website is secure? What are the two ways? HTTPS and lock symbol. Yes, very good. That's right. Does it need to have both? No, it can have one or the other. So did we, let's go back to our objective, which was, can we recognize when websites are safe to share private information with? Do you feel that we can now do that? I'm seeing yeses. Okay, so we have met the objectives of this lesson, and that's the lesson that we're going to do today. So let me now thank you very much for being students. You were great students. I love to see all the participation. And let's go back and let me show you what I was looking at. So you can see it from my point of view. So what I had was the lesson plan, and it looks like what I got to see was, you saw this first page, and then it kind of tells me, you know, why the warm up and what people should do. Basically just tells me to list those objectives on the board and tells me how to do it. And then I skipped some, like I said, we were only gonna do part of it. But you can see here, I was on secure versus not secure. Here it tells me, I can't make this bigger, sorry. It tells me what to say to you. So they gave me the words to what to say to you, when I should show you the reference pages, and all, you know, all this information. So it's really easy for me as an instructor to kind of go through this without having to have put a lot of time or effort into prepping for you. So, excuse me. So that's kind of what I wanted to show you today. So let's take some time here at the end. Now you've seen, you kind of know what's in Northstar, you've seen how to do some of the tasks, you've seen kind of what the learner, how to talk to learners about it. What ideas, so I was talking to, New Jersey libraries this morning. I'm talking to a lot of organizations these days. And one thing that was mentioned then, which I think is a really great idea, and maybe we've talked about this too, is to sharing ideas with your colleagues can be really beneficial. So in this time, if you have some thoughts about how you're going to use Northstar at your libraries, if you already are, or what you're going to start implementing with what roles in the library might be those that would most work with your clients on Northstar. That's really helpful for you to share in this meeting with your colleagues. And then going forth, I think that Christine, or tell me if I'm wrong, but I think you had talked about maybe setting up some kind of cohort or a way for people to kind of check in with each other to see what they're doing and share information. Kevin had a good comment in the chat about how can you tell that a website is not secure? And if someone says, this is a great clarification. If someone answers the address starts with HTTP, well, they all start with HTTP. They would have to say, you know, this starts with HTTP and there's no S after the HTTP, really. So good clarification, thank you. It looks like Christine said that there is a place to post comments about Northstar and Northstar-L. Any thoughts right now that you have about how you might implement, what you're starting with? Maybe what you're nervous about. This, you know, you have what, 51 people on the chat that that I'm sure would love to hear if you have ideas or may be able to help out if you have questions. I mean, obviously I can help with questions too, but. So anyone have some thoughts about how they might start using Northstar? And many libraries start by having their own staff just practicing in it. But Kelsey says, you know, looking forward to implementing this as a very structured method of teaching digital literacy, of teaching the existing digital literacy. And it is nice when you use the instructor-led curriculum, because then everyone is kind of using the same thing. So let's say someone takes some classes at Library A and then moves somewhere in Ohio, they're still going to get the same kind of experience if they go to Library B. So each lesson takes about 1.5 to 2 hours to go through. The entire lesson is kind of what the curriculum developers thought. And each module, depending on how many lessons are in the module, would take, around 15 to 18 hours, I would say. So that is true. Starting with staff instruction, so that's a great way to have people, have your staff play around in here. There's nothing they're gonna, break in here. They just get them used to what's in Northstar, so they can start talking about it, have them take the assessments, have them do the self-directed online learning, again, so they're more comfortable talking to their clients about it. And also it's professional development for them as well. Thank you for sharing those thoughts. Any other thoughts about how you might get started? Or even what library role you might start using Northstar, who might start using Northstar? All right, and again, just want to remind you that Northstar is something that does promote equity and closes that digital divide, but only if we are able to work with the people who really need it and give them that kind of hand-holding to get them started. So Christine has put a feedback survey in the chat. And then Sarah was saying that their library is probably going to use this for staff development first, and then patron instruction. And I think that's a really, great way to start it. Get your staff comfortable with it. And once people start using it, it's much easier to promote it, I think. So that's a good idea. So good question. Can you delete users and assessments? Let's look. I think the answer is yes, but I want to make sure that I'm not telling you something that's not true. So if we go to the learners, you can delete them. You can see the trash can here next to somebody. So if you want to, if you're fake, so I do this all the time. I create fake learners in the system, like this first one, Nancy Adams. So I can just delete her, and then it says, do you want to do that? All the information surrounding her will be lost. So if I wanted to track the assessments she had taken, I probably wouldn't want to delete her. But if it's something where you've made up someone like I have here, or for whatever reason you really don't care about their records, you can just delete it like that. And then you can see that she's inactive. I don't think her name goes away, though. I'm just refreshing to see if it does. Oh, it does. So when I refreshed my screen, her name also was gone. And deleting assessments, you can. So if you come to the assessment results and you're looking at some of those results, And let's say that this one, I'm not going to actually delete one because I'm not sure what my colleagues might be using. But if you click on this person's name, you get more information. And then you can see here down below that you can invalidate an assessment. You can see that here in the gold on the far right. And here you can actually, so that would be, let's say it was, you had left your Proctor Pin in the computer and someone took an assessment and said it was proctored, but it really wasn't. You can invalidate that here so that, you know, it's not showing up as proctored. If you go to the bottom in the red, you can see that you can delete this and that will take the assessment completely out of the Northstar system. So if you don't care about saving it, like maybe you don't, you're a staff person and you don't want other people seeing your assessment results, you can delete it. Great question. Thank you for asking that. Any other questions before we say goodbye? All right. Well, thank you all so much for coming to this and for your great participation. Definitely makes it more fun for me. But I really want to thank you mostly for being, you know, helping basically the citizens of Ohio, helping close that digital literacy gap and how important that is. We just did a survey. I just saw the results of a survey that one of my colleagues had done that was talking to focus groups of actual learners, people in digital literacy programs. And one of the questions that was asked was, why do you want to learn digital literacy? And we kind of thought the answer would be, to get a better job. And some people definitely answered that. But a lot more people, the majority of the people, said that the reason they wanted to learn digital literacy was because they felt left out, kind of left out of society or the world, where they knew that they needed these skills and they knew that they were preventing them from doing a lot. And they felt that they weren't kind of full participants without having these skills. So it is something that people really do want. All the learners I've encountered have really been excited by it, to learn the skills. And people have said, these are things I wanted to learn for so long, but I was always too embarrassed to ask somebody because I thought everybody else knew. So there is a real need and desire out there. So I thank you for helping the untold number of people that you're going to be helping. I am going to stop sharing my screen. Christine, I don't know if you have anything you want to add at the end.
I just wanted to add my thanks as well to everyone who attended today and everyone who participated so enthusiastically. And as Teresa said, there are lots of folks who want our help, and you see them every day. My hope is that Northstar is not just one more thing for you to do. It is a tool for you to help do the things that you're already doing more easily, and it is a way to guide the conversations that you're already having so that you don't have to think about it so deeply. I know we talked a little bit about the curriculum, and yes, those modules are very, very detailed, but you can take those scripts and concentrate, as Teresa said, on the aspects of the interaction that the person in front of you really has in mind that day. So I hope that you will find those useful. I am going to end the recording now, and you will be getting a link to the survey for today's event. You will also be getting some information about recording that you can share with other folks. That should be processed probably later tomorrow. And we are working on some ideas for sharing best practices. Right now we have the listserv, which is not just for me to communicate with you, it's for you to communicate with each other as well. So please feel free to use that. And thank you once again. Thank you, Teresa, for your time. Again, I know you're trying to get a lot of people going right at once, and we appreciate all of your time and energy today and always with regard to helping the folks in Ohio.
You bet.
So, all right. Well, that is it for today. Thank you all and have a good rest of your day.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.